combination of food and poetry is always a good thing. And as the British say, it's food for thought. So it comes nicely.
I'm Rose Lucas, and I'm the managing director of the Hands Up Foundation, and I set up the Syrian Supper Club. And the idea is simple and positive. It's about getting people together and reminding or introducing them to Syria's rich culture, and at the same time doing something good. And the money raised goes to the salaries of Syrian doctors and teachers who are based inside Syria and on its borders. And we've certainly had speakers along to our events before, and music as well, but we've never had poetry, so it's fabulous to have Farrah, Akbik and Amir Darwish speaking this evening. How many vegetarians have we got? So we'll be starting with a little bit of food on the tables, just so people don't get peckish. And we've got some delicious marinated olives with pomegranate molasses and some nuts. And then we've got various other meze dishes, which is all sharing, and that's the beauty of Syrian food. And so for meze this evening, we've got harissa, which is a sort of spicy dip, which lots of people probably know. And then we've got shwander, which is a beetroot dip, beautiful, bright purple, shot up against the white labneh, which is a sort of heavy, dense yogurt with a bit of olive oil. And then we've got za'atar and olive oil as well, and that will be served with flatbreads and some crudité, so fresh cucumbers and carrots. Then following that, chicken pate, which is a chicken dish with bread on top, and it's sort of delicious, all sorts of flavours, Syrian flavours. And then finally, for pudding, we've got something called harissa, and it's a sweet cake, and it's quite dense and sugary. And then interspersed between the courses, we're going to have some words from Amir and Farrah, which will be absolutely fabulous. We start with the far end, and there's a 5 and a 4 and a 5. That would be fabulous.
Does someone want any more drink? Hello everyone, my name is Farrah Akbik. I'd just like to say thank you so much to the Syrian Supper Club for asking me to come and read some of my poems. It's an absolute privilege. This poem is dedicated to a childhood friend called Amir. He was taken off the streets of Damascus, and we heard nothing for years and years and years. We didn't know what happened to him until I think it was about a year and a half ago. We finally got a death certificate through, but this is for Amir. Amir, do you remember, Amir, how we used to play? From dawn to dusk, come in, they would say. I think you found your match in me, a tomboy, fearless. I ignored all your pleas. Our escapades around the hilltops of Bludan, dear childhood friend, I left you a man. Our scratches, bruises, cuts and tears. One more turn on the bikes, Amir. I won't be back till next year. I broke my foot. You were stung by a bee, but still we would laugh uncontrollably. Hide and seek, dig a trench, build a bonfire until we were spent. We would watch the sun melt into the valley, and the moon awake, the stars she would rally. Zabadani lay down her head to sleep, as the velvet night sky would over her curves creep. We would bicker and argue, tussle and fight, but in the morning all would be all right. Hours of fun we would spend, me and you, exploring endlessly, admiring the view. Do you remember climbing the walnut tree? The bliss, the innocence, we were so carefree. The scent of almonds in the air, Greek Orthodox bells singing in the square. The hustle and bustle of those long summer nights, you would grip my hand, never lose me from sight. You're 4 years younger than me, I would say, but your gallantry and chivalry always got in the way. We would talk for hours of childhood dreams, but you were destined for far greater, it seems. The utopia of childhood we left eventually, and destiny carried us off separately. Fast forward, and the revolution did begin. You couldn't turn a blind eye to the misery within. No more gentler, softer, or kinder a soul to sit back and watch was taking its toll. The siege of Homs did hit you hard. You could not watch the women and children starve. Had you have been a coward, you'd be here today. I'd have no poem to write, nothing to say. No violence did you preach, nor for weapon did you reach. Collecting money for the weak was your crime, snatched from the streets of Damascus in your prime. Into the dungeon of Assad you did disappear. No allegation, no charge, your location unclear. No stone unturned, your family searched for years. We were all left drowning in our tears. False alarms, dashed hopes, vicious ploys. They played with your parents as if they were toys. Your mother would stand outside the secret police. She could not rest until her boy was at peace. Go home, old woman, or we will take you next. Stop coming here, you do our patience vex. Do you not have sons that you love and cherish? Please let me know if my son did perish. Finally, a death certificate did arrive, 4 years after you were last seen alive. You were martyred 3 months after your arrest. In an unknown mass grave, you do rest. I scream this loud at the top of my lungs. Your name will be from the minarets sung. To them but a name on Caesar's list. 110,000 souls of which it does consist. Your essence is upon my heart etched, immortalized for all, I will let none forget. I will scratch your existence into the history books. I promise you, Amir, they cannot escape my hooks. I refuse to let your death be in vain. May my poem breathe life back into you yet again. My words transform into deadly darts, that I may pierce them through their rotten hearts. Rest in peace, my dear friend, and know that this is not the end. The tyrant Assad, you will succeed him in your continued fight for your right to freedom. 2 things actually got me into poetry. One was the start of the revolution. I think just watching it unravel on social media and on the news, and having sort of been down to Damascus at the very beginning, it was a way for me to release all that anger and pain. And so I don't know, I had like survivor's guilt, you may say, because I was here and everyone, like family, friends, were all back there and were suffering, and I was here just watching. I just felt so helpless, and it kind of like I had to release that anger and upset some way. So I just sort of one day out of the blue just started writing and just sort of releasing all that tension from me. I'm just so grateful to everyone here, especially Ruth, the lady that's doing all the cooking, and Lauren and Rose and everyone sort of having asked me to come and to perform. I just feel so humbled and privileged to be here with you all, and just so grateful that, you know, the plight of refugees is being highlighted in such a great way. This poem is about the Arab Spring. And when the Arab Spring started, we had such aspiration for freedom. Now it's kind of like nosedived, and this poem is kind of trying to describe how dejected we all feel. Spring. A revolution made me pick up my pen, a passion for you, and I couldn't put it down again. There was too much hurt in my soul, too much sorrow for me to hold. I wanted you to look past my lashes, to see far beyond into the smouldering ashes. I gave you my heart with an aching plea, so that you may read and comfort me. For the winds of change did kiss the Levant, heralding a defiant spring one early morn, as the people peered from behind curtains drawn and whispered the arrival of a new coming dawn. I looked up at you, my beautiful spring. I wanted you to fathom our confinement within. We wanted to be free, to be heard, to be seen, so burned our story upon the retina of history, dancing the debke to the drums of victory, singing through shrapnel, unfurling the flags like waves of defiance, winking in the eye of compliance. With fervour we did beseech, with childlike innocence we believed. We scratched upon the walls, our blood did spill upon the cell floors. We painted, we drew, we wrote all for you. Across Europe we marched with dignity and pride, smuggling our stories out so that you may hear our plight. To stand up one day in The Hague and demand justice for all who gave, only to be betrayed. A diaspora scattered across a continent and beyond, carrying with us a burning desire to be reborn. I followed your torch from across the perilous sea. I scrambled up onto your shore, so why, oh why did you forsake me? You were my revolution, you were my hope. I lowered my veil and fixed your gaze so that your dew may caress my face. Such was my elation that midsummer night as I felt revolt embrace me and change my life. You said light back into my eyes, but then you just left as soon as you had arrived. For autumn took you away and the leaves did fall again. Cruel clouds crept in and the bombs did upon us rain, and your silence was more harrowing than the tyrant's chains. The revolution did perish for me that day. We were abandoned in our moment of need. I was scared, but you paid no heed. I can't even trust my own heart, for it cherished you, my freedom, my hope, yet you tore us apart. We were deceived by an indifferent humanity, left to wither, broken and corralled, swaddled in venom, the promise of liberty ever distant now. Yet with purpose and faltering breath, your name on my lips still rests. My strained pupils upon your face beg to look, so that one day we may finish this book. Until then, we are smothered in the embers of a dying dream, buried once again in the autumn leaves.
Okay, great. So we need to start serving the next one.
Where's this break going to?
My name is Amir Darwish. I'm British Syrian poet and writer of Kurdish origin. And the poem I'm going to read is thinking about what the refugees and immigrants have left behind them when they came to their country of destination. So it's called What I Left Behind. I left that table with the 3 books, a tea glass dirty, an ashtray. The TV remote still lost somewhere between cushions. A wall with a mixture of rotten green, broken yellow light. Small window into an empty street. A lonely white tissue blowing in a ruined alley. I left a pregnant apple tree. A sink full of pans from last night's meal, my plate among them with the tulip. I left half a bottle of red wine near the bed, money notes wrinkled, a belt with a broken buckle, the painting in the corridor, the tearful man in it has his hand on his cheek, the forest behind him is as huge as the memory it leaves behind. I left the tape player a lover once gave me, playing the Kurdish singer Muhammad Sheikho saying, "Oh the land, oh the land." I left my school desk engraved with my name, the teacher who lectured me every time I brought a poetry book to school instead of my homework. I left the old corner shop containing a dead book that has my name in it. I left a pair of new shoes, the yellow laces I bought to go with them. I left my mother who used to call me when it was time to eat. I left a generous father who used to bring home bags of figs, apples, and occasionally a roast chicken. I left home. Thank you very much.
It's very important for evenings like this to take place in the Western world and also in the UK, because we are at the stage where Syria has been in the news for such a long time, it's no more in the news. and people don't want to look at it because they don't want to see that what's happening there or what's going on. But the main thing is always events like this will remind us there are humans there, they have feelings, they sleep, they eat, they wake up, they go to their work, they do their business just like everyone else, and these events, they do that.
Can I ask guests, please, to keep their cup ready if they can?
I'm glad to be here with my friend who comes from Syria, and I find it really interesting to travel through the food and through the words to see how beautiful and hard it can be to live in Syria.
I think it's a great initiative, and I think it's a great way to portray Syria with great food and really emotional and touching poems. And I think that I'm very happy to be part of it, actually. If it would just been the food or just the poetry, both combining it gives you more a sense of being part of the culture, because it's not just food or not just poems, but it's everything together. So yeah, I think it goes really well. Yeah.
So I came to the event, I just got invited a few hours before the event, and so I didn't really know what to expect. But since being here, since having the food, since listening to the poetry, I think what's really stuck out is, although I knew about the situation in Syria, I think the food and the poetry brought, the humanity of everything, kind of, like, it really hit home.
I will end with a poem from my latest collection, Dear Refugee. And unfortunately, sometimes the identity of the people who are arriving is being questioned. So I wrote this poem, which called If You Are British, I'm British Too. If you are British, I'm British too. I sleep every night just like you do. I find myself in situations I never knew. I sniff the same air as you. I travel by plane, trains and car. Where the language is concerned, I also don't have a clue. I eat fish and chips too. I go to the shop to buy bread and milk to see my hunger through. If you are British, I'm British too. I eat with my mouth and go to the loo. I bleed the same color as you. I get sick just like you. I drink coffee and tea, and yes, I take milk too. If you are British, I'm British too. I walk the dog when he wants me to. I see the birds fly in the same sky as you. If you took me to a walk in my shoe, you will see that if I am British, you are British too. I'm American, Syrian, Bangladeshi, Colombian and Indian, Pakistani, South African, Polish, Brazilian, Korean, Chinese. I am white, black and pink. But above all, I am human like you. If you are British, I'm British too. Thank you so much.